Breaking tonight, Washington just witnessed something the world wasn't supposed to see. A professional lip reader decoded exactly what Donald Trump said to Mark Carney during the FIFA World Cup 2026 draw ceremony, and the results reveal everything about who actually holds power in that room. Because here's what nobody expected, and Trump wasn't threatening Carney. He wasn't pressuring him. He wasn't even negotiating. Trump was trying to impress him. Let that sink in for a moment. The man who spent years intimidating world leaders, who turned diplomatic meetings into power plays, who made European premiers uncomfortable and Asian heads of state anxious, that same Donald Trump leaned toward Mark Carney during a global ceremony and said, "I love this." Not as a statement to the crowd, not as a political gesture, as a direct comment to Carney seeking his acknowledgement, wanting his reaction. And what makes this moment absolutely fascinating is what it reveals about the fundamental shift happening in the North American power dynamics right now. But we need to understand what led to this moment, because nothing about last night happened by accident. Washington, December 5th, 2025. Hours before the FIFA ceremony began, Mark Carney and Donald Trump held a private 45-minute closed-door meeting. No staff, no advisors, no cameras, just two leaders, face-to-face, and in what sources describe as one of the most significant bilateral conversations of the year. Now, 45 minutes is not protocol. 45 minutes is not photo opportunity diplomacy. 45 minutes is negotiation, positioning, relationship building, and strategic message delivery. And when those doors opened and both men emerged for the public ceremony, something had fundamentally changed in their dynamic. Translation: Carney walked into that meeting as Canada's representative. He walked out as someone Trump now treats differently than every other leader in that building. Here's what happened next, and this is where the lip-reading revelation becomes critical. The ceremony itself was theatrical, almost surreal. Trump had just received FIFA's inaugural Peace Prize, a golden trophy created specifically for him, which he promptly placed around his neck like a medallion. Andrea Bocelli had delivered a soaring rendition of Nessun Dorma. The atmosphere was celebratory, performative, designed for maximum spectacle. And then the village people stepped on stage. The professional lip reader confirmed it. Not a casual aside to anyone nearby, not a comment to Melania. A direct statement to Mark Carney, as if seeking validation from the one person in that arena whose opinion Trump actually valued in that moment. And Carney, he didn't flinch. He didn't play subordinate. He didn't treat Trump with the exaggerated deference that so many leaders instinctively adopt around him. Carney engaged calmly, naturally, confidently. The way you respond when you know you're on equal footing. That's diplomatic gravity. Most leaders don't have it around Trump. Carney does. The lip reader caught another moment. Trump turned to Melania and said, "Come on, join in." Almost as if he was performing the interaction for Carney's benefit. Think about that pattern. Trump is a man who dominates rooms. He doesn't share stages voluntarily. He doesn't invite others into moments unless there's strategic value. But last night, Trump was actively trying to create an atmosphere of connection with Carney, using music, using celebration, using informality as a diplomatic tool. And the fact that Carney handled it without losing composure, without appearing intimidated, without giving Trump more acknowledgement than necessary, that tells you everything about who actually controlled that exchange. Because here's the context that makes this interaction so revealing. This ceremony didn't happen during calm diplomatic waters. This happened while Trump's punishing 50% tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum are crushing Canadian industries. This happened while tensions over North American trade are escalating. This happened while reports suggest Trump wants to fracture the three-nation USMCA framework and deal with Mexico and Canada separately. And in other words, Trump's economic pressure campaign against Canada is very real, very active, and very public. And yet, when Trump and Carney sat side by side at that ceremony, Carney looked completely unfazed. Not defensive, not anxious, not performing strength to mask concern, actually calm, actually confident, actually in control. Translation? Whatever Carney said in that 45-minute private meeting, it worked. Dear viewers, we need to talk about what diplomatic influence actually looks like in 2025, because the old playbook is dead. For decades, American presidents could walk into rooms and expect deference. They could apply economic pressure and watch other nations scramble. They could threaten tariffs and see immediate concessions. That model worked when America was the only option, when global supply chains had no alternatives, when smaller economies had nowhere else to turn. But something fundamental has shifted, and last night's ceremony revealed it in the most unexpected way. Mark Carney doesn't need Donald Trump the way previous Canadian leaders needed previous American presidents, and Trump knows it. Here's the context that makes this interaction so revealing. This ceremony didn't happen during calm diplomatic waters. This happened while Trump's punishing 50% tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum are crushing Canadian industries. This happened while Canadian manufacturers are facing unprecedented pressure. This happened while reports suggest Trump wants to fracture the three-nation USMCA framework and deal with Mexico and Canada separately. They were all utterly incorrect. And last night, when Trump leaned over during a performance and tried to charm Carney, tried to create a moment of personal connection, tried to make Carney react with enthusiasm, what Trump was really doing was testing. Testing whether Carney still needed American approval, testing whether Canada's leader would still defer to American influence, testing whether the old dynamic still applied. Carney's response answered all of those questions. Calm engagement, no excessive enthusiasm, no subordinate body language, no signal that Canada is in a weaker position, just professional, diplomatic presence. And Trump, reading that signal perfectly, kept trying, kept leaning in, kept attempting to create warmth, because Trump understands something that most people miss about power dynamics. When you're the one trying harder in an interaction, you're not the one with leverage. Now here's where this gets even more strategic. After the ceremony ended, multiple international media outlets focused their coverage on Carney, not Trump. Cameras lingered on Carney longer. Social media clips of Carney trended higher. Foreign delegations sought Carney out for conversations. Even though Trump was the sitting former president, even though Trump commands media attention instinctively, Carney somehow became the gravitational center of that event. And that pattern has repeated at every major international gathering in recent months. At the G7, reporters gravitated toward Carney. At UN climate sessions, diplomatic attention focused on Carney. At trade summits, other nations' representatives sought Carney's perspective first. Why? Because in a world increasingly exhausted by chaos, by unpredictability, by leaders who govern through disruption, Carney represents something different. Competence, calm, strategic thinking, long-term planning, diplomatic maturity. An audience, whether they're journalists or voters or other world leaders, they naturally move toward stability when everything else feels uncertain. Trump is loud, Carney is steady, and in diplomacy, steady wins. But let's go deeper into what that 45-minute private meeting likely covered, because nothing about last night's public interaction happened without groundwork. Sources familiar with diplomatic protocol suggest that any meeting lasting that long, with no staff present, covers substantive issues, not pleasantries, not symbolic gestures, actual negotiation. And given the current state of North American trade relations, we can map out exactly what Carney likely communicated. First, Canada's position on tariffs, not a plea for exemption, not a request for American mercy, a clear outline of consequences. If Trump maintains his 50% tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, Canada will permanently redirect major trade flows toward Asian markets. That's not a threat. That's a statement of capability, backed by already signed agreements with Japan, South Korea, and Sweden. Carney isn't asking Trump to believe him. He's showing Trump the infrastructure already in place. Second, Canada's alternative partnerships. Carney likely detailed the recent diplomatic victories, the Swedish investment eliminating American financing leverage, the Korean technology partnership creating Asian market access, the Japanese trade expansion building non-American supply chains. Again, not theoretical, not future plans, completed deals, active relationships, working alternatives. Trump understands business leverage. Carney just demonstrated that Canada has options Trump can't control. Third, and this is crucial, Canada's willingness to proceed without American cooperation. The old diplomatic model assumed Canada needed American approval for major economic moves. Carney's recent strategy proves otherwise. Canada secured massive international investment without American involvement. Canada built Asian trade relationships without American permission. Canada is constructing critical infrastructure without American financing. The message to Trump is clear. Canadian sovereignty is non-negotiable, and Canada will pursue its interests whether America cooperates or not. Translation: Carney didn't walk into that meeting seeking Trump's blessing. He walked in establishing terms. And when Trump emerged from that 45-minute conversation and then spent the entire ceremony trying to engage Carney warmly, trying to create moments of connection, trying to demonstrate friendliness, what Trump was really signaling is this. He understands that Canada is no longer in a position where American pressure automatically works. Trump can threaten tariffs. Canada will pivot to Asia. Trump can demand concessions. Canada will build alternatives. Trump can attempt to fracture USMCA. Canada will thrive through bilateral partnerships Trump can't touch. For the first time in modern North American relations, the United States is discovering that economic leverage has limits, that other nations have choices, that threatening smaller allies doesn't guarantee compliance anymore. And Mark Carney is the architect of that shift. This is why last night mattered so profoundly, not because of what was said during a performance, because of what the entire interaction revealed about changed power dynamics. When Trump tries to charm you, when Trump seeks your approval, when Trump performs warmth for your benefit, you're not the supplicant in that relationship. You're the one being courted. And Carney, understanding this perfectly, gave Trump exactly enough engagement to remain diplomatic, while revealing nothing that suggested Canada operates from a position of weakness. That's mastery. That's how you navigate unpredictable leaders without surrendering ground. That's how you maintain sovereignty while preserving relationships. And that's why every time Mark Carney and Donald Trump share a room, Carney walks out having shifted the dynamic further in Canada's favor. The lip reading didn't just expose what Trump said during his ceremony, it exposed who holds actual leverage in North American diplomacy right now. And if you're watching from Canada, you should feel confident. If you're watching from the United States, you should be concerned. Because the old playbook is obsolete and Canada's new strategy is working. If this analysis revealed something you hadn't considered before, if seeing how these diplomatic moments actually function changed your understanding of what's happening in North American relations right now, this is exactly why Canada Next exists. We break down the moments mainstream media misses, we explain the strategy behind diplomatic moves, and we show you how Canada is reshaping its position on the world stage. What did you notice about Carney's body language during that ceremony? Did Trump's attempts at warmth surprise you? What do you think was actually discussed in that 45-minute meeting? Drop your analysis in the comments because this community gets stronger when we're all paying attention to what's really happening.